Well, folks, the cover story for the Trump assassination plot is not going well. It seems to be falling apart rapidly, which is remarkable considering we're only, just over a week out from the attempt. And, think about the JFK assassination. What is it now? 60 years later, we still don't know the truth. But with the Trump assassination plot, there was already so much suspicion to begin with. The second it happened, the intel agencies have absolutely there's no good faith, amongst the American people, amongst at least Trump voters. Even members of Congress seem quite skeptical of the official narrative. They had the director of the Secret Service in front of a congressional committee, I think it was the Oversight Committee, to grill her today. I wasn't able to watch all of it, but from what I saw, they were quite aggressive towards the woman. She was defiant. One of the congressmen told her she needs to go back to guarding Doritos, because, of course, she was formerly the head of security for PepsiCo or Frito-Lay. No, I think it was PepsiCo. There's a lot coming out that's poking holes in the official narrative, but the most significant thing to me that I saw that came out of this hearing today was not only the tone of the Republicans on the committee, who were just absolutely unconvinced by the official narrative. They did not seem like they were playing along for the most part. In fact, one of the members of Congress, Anna Luna of Florida, she tweeted after the hearing that I'm more convinced than ever that Thomas Crooks was not working alone, essentially saying that this was not a lone gunman. There was some kind of conspiracy between multiple people, between Crooks and somebody else, to take out the president, the former president, the potential future president, which failed on Saturday, July the 13th, 2024. And so during this hearing, one of the most important questions that was asked of the Secret Service director was, did you recover any shell casings from the roof where the shooter was supposedly raining down hellfire? According to the audio that I've seen, there were 9 shots that were fired towards the stage, and then there was 1 shot fired back, which killed the shooter, and it went through his forehead. From the audio I've heard, that's what you can hear. So we should expect to see 9 shell casings on that roof in order to account for every shot that was supposedly taken by this Thomas Matthew Crooks fellow. And so I can't remember which congressman it was that asked her this, but she said, in fact, yes, the FBI director did tell her how many shell casings were found on the rooftop, but she was not going to share that with the committee because this is an ongoing investigation. I can't tell you how many shell casings were next to the shooter, which one way or the other would be direct confirmation that either he was the only shooter or if there was more than one shooter. Which that's really the question here. At this point, was this guy... Well, actually, it's not the only question, because even if he was the only shooter, the fact that he was allowed to get off even 1 shot could be the result of him working with people on the inside, working with potentially someone in the Secret Service or the local police who would have otherwise stopped him. But still, as a baseline, we need to establish the facts. We need to know, okay, how many shell casings were on the rooftop? Because the way that the roof looked on here, they should have stopped the break. It wasn't a very steep roof at all. It was almost flat. The brass should have landed on the roof. There's plenty of room. It should have been caught in all the grooves. We should have every piece of brass that was ejected from that gun. Every picture that we've seen, now again, they've been kind of far away, of the aftermath, the crime scene, we've not been able to see any shell casings in any picture that I've seen, but again, that could be because we were far away. It could be because, you know, that's one of the first things that the police do, maybe, is pick up brass. But there should, of course, be pictures, you know, from the crime scene investigators took. They should, of course, number all the shell casings. This is basic police work. And so, as I said, there should be 9 shell casings on that rooftop. If they were not able to recover 9 shell casings, then there's a strong possibility that Thomas Crooks not only was not working alone, as Congresswoman Luna now believes as a result of this hearing. That would be a strong indication, not evidence, but as an indication that he was not the only shooter, that there was actually someone else working in tandem with Mr. Crooks, someone who is still at large. And if you look at the audio analysis by Chris Martinson of Peak Prosperity, you go to Peak Prosperity on YouTube, he's got multiple videos out where he's discussing the audio tracks and looking at the sort of the sound waves and Audacity of the gunshots. They do sound different. The first 3 shots sound pretty distinct, and then the next group of like 5 or 6, it sounds like 6 shots. That's why I've been saying, 8 or 9 rounds. I'm pretty sure they're 9, fired downrange towards the stage. That second group of 6 shots, not only are they very fast, much faster than the first 3 shots, they sound different. Almost like, the sound is just different in the way that it's reverberating. The echo is different. And that would seem to indicate that this was not fired from the same gun in the same spot. And again, this was the kind of, this is a very common thing when there are shootings like this. People say, oh, there was a second shooter, and it's something that is often, people say early on, and then it's never proven. Well, in this case, the evidence that we're seeing actually seems to support that. It's something that was said about, the JFK assassination, but, nobody was ever able to prove anything like that because we didn't have all this kind of data like we do now, because there aren't people recording, back in 1964, people weren't recording everything with their phones. There was a guy with some, 8mm home video recording the JFK assassination. Not as good as, a lot of what we have today. Although in some ways, you'd rather have 8mm film, because the thing is about film is it's always in HD. It's not going to get all pixelated. But anyway, very concerning that the Secret Service director will not confess how many shell casings were found on that roof. And the fact that she will not reveal that, to me, indicates that there were less than 9 shell casings found next to the shooter. Because otherwise, why would you conceal that? Why would you hide that? If it's the obvious answer that everyone is expecting, why would you hide it? There is no point in keeping secrets unless you have something to hide. And so that brings me to the most damning thing that I've seen today. A congressman, oh God, what was his name? Eli something. Gosh, now I feel terrible. I'll have to link to his tweet with his video. He went up, I assume, with other people. There were other people there on the rooftop with him. But today he was at the scene of the crime where the shooter had been perched, looking down at the stage. You could see the sniper's view, and by the sniper I mean the shooter himself. And I don't know how else to say this other than the police absolutely knew he was there. At least the local police. You could make a case, okay, maybe the Secret Service, their view, the Secret Service that we saw on the rooftop next to Trump, their view might have been blocked by a tree. That's possible. Those particular guys, those 2 guys, their view might have been blocked by a tree. But the police snipers they were in that building that that Crooks was shooting from. In fact, they were on the 2nd story in a part of the complex. And the way it worked is that part of the building was 2 stories, another part of it was 1 story. Crooks was on the roof of the 1-story portion of the complex. The police snipers were perched out of the second-story window of the same building. So he was actually right in front of them. Their guns, if they were looking out with their scopes towards the stage, the police, they were looking right over his head. He was right there out the window. It was plain as day. It's undeniable now that not only did everyone know he was there, because we've had the police, multiple police officers and things say, oh yeah, we reported it. You have all the witnesses saying, hey, I told the police, I told the Secret Service, we put this out on the radio channels. There were police standing right there behind him when he started shooting. The whole time that he was sitting there on the roof, there were police in that window. In fact, there were police officers who took his picture from that very window. And so, folks, there's no other way to spin this. This Crooks guy, even if he did all the shooting, he had help. They helped him by not taking him out ahead of time. They knew he was there. He was literally right under their nose. They're not blind. These men who work in the police department and in the Secret Service, they have eyes. They were on that rooftop. They were looking out those windows. He was right there with the rest of them. I mean, the only explanation is that they thought that he was like one of them or something. I don't know why you would think that. He was wearing a Demolition Ranch shirt. He was a soyed out, bony, skinny guy. Pale as a ghost, scraggly long hair. Didn't look like a police officer. But he was allowed to crawl up on that rooftop right in front of those cops and supposedly get off 9 shots aimed right at Donald Trump's head, killing one man. It's not just that this stuff doesn't add up. It's nonsense. The story's broken. I mean, I didn't expect it to happen like this. I thought that this would be the kind of thing. It's like, oh, we'll always, there will always be people who thought that, the assassination of Trump, that guy had some help or that they let it happen and, it's lucky that he got off. It's like, but no, I didn't expect the whole story to unravel like this. Like, wow, this is bad. This was not well done. The whole thing's a total sham. And so hopefully this doesn't get taken down from YouTube for saying that, but I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's... You have members of Congress saying as much now. I mean, that's my source. My source here is video and audio evidence combined with, the analysis of members of Congress and congressional hearings, official testimony. It's not a conspiracy theory. That's a term that was invented by the CIA in order to discredit people who questioned the Kennedy assassination. That's what that term was invented for. A lot of people don't know that. But here, what we have is direct evidence of something that could only be described as a conspiracy to let this guy crawl on the roof, take aim, and open fire on Donald Trump. And it was only once he opened fire, supposedly. And again, at this point, everything's up in the air. We don't have evidence that he even took one shot. Maybe he was just there. Maybe somebody else was shooting, and they shot this guy. And he was just the fall guy. Because Thomas Crooks never stood trial, folks. He's dead. He's never going to stand trial. So he didn't have a chance to present his evidence. He was executed. And, there's a case to be made that there was very good reason to execute him, but considering all the malfeasance of the authorities in this case that is already established, who's to say that this guy was not the actual shooter, and that these folks, they shot him instead of whoever was doing the shooting. And whoever was doing the shooting needs to be caught. So this matters. This isn't, an academic discussion. This is an ongoing criminal investigation that is likely being rigged by the authorities. And if I were Donald Trump, if I were the family of this firefighter who was killed, if I were the guy who got shot behind Trump, who survived, and thankfully I think he only got minor injuries, all those folks should be demanding justice, And Donald Trump has the biggest microphone if I were him, I would be tweeting out all these videos. I'd be talking about this, quite a bit. I'd be playing this up. I'd want to know who shot me. Okay? That's the way I look at it. It's a safety thing. Because if you don't know who was trying to kill you, you're not going to know how to avoid that in the future. You got to know who took that shot. And it might be that all the shots were fired by this Crooks guy, and he was merely allowed to fire them, because that's the base case right now. That's the best case scenario for the authorities, is that they just let him. Something worse is that it was him and another guy, and that guy got away, and this Crooks guy is getting all the blame, because again, this is something that could be answered by the number of shell casings, and we need proof. And here's the thing, at this point, as shady as these folks are being, if the FBI comes out and says, oh yeah, we found 9 shell casings next to the guy, it's like, well, how do we know that you're not lying? Because at this point, as shady as you've been about it, it's like, well, why didn't you just say that to begin with? Why didn't you show us the picture of all the shell casings? Why didn't any of the police have their body cams on? We're told every single police officer, even after all the shooting was going on, they never turned on their body cams. They didn't bother. While they were responding to the attempted assassination of a former U.S. president and current presidential candidate, none of them turned on their body cams. That's what we're being told. At first I thought the Secret Service was the only ones being shady, and the local police seemed like they were trying to cover themselves and say, hey, we didn't do anything wrong. We did our job. Secret Service is in charge. We were just following orders. I bought that for a couple days. Now it seems like, no, the police are complicit in this. Whatever happened, they're not telling the whole truth. So anyway, with that said, I'll see you folks back here in the next one.